Ladies and gents, welkom bij een nieuwe podcast van Entrepreneurs in Dubai, oftewel Ondernemers in Dubai. Ik heb hier een special gast vandaag. Vandaag doen we het in het Engels, want hij komt uit USA. Dus ik ga ook weer switchen nu naar het Engels. So Michael, welcome to Entrepreneurs in Dubai.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, sure. I'm really excited as well. So for the people at home who don't know you yet, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. My name is Michael. I have been in the agency space since 2015, so almost a decade, which is crazy to say. I started out in influencer marketing, sold an agency, kind of got me into space, and now I do a lot of B2B lead gen. So I do B2B lead gen for agencies, manufacturing, medical, just a whole bunch of B2B service and product companies.
Yeah, I know you because I was in a program of Iman and you were one of the coaches there. So actually a funny story that we now meet in Dubai. We actually met a couple of times, right?
Yeah, a couple times for coffee, met some of your friends. I mean, the networking here is incredible, the density of entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Before we talk about all the business things, because the podcast, it's called like Entrepreneurs in Dubai. Can you tell a bit why you are here, how you like Dubai, or you don't maybe?
Yeah, definitely. So I travel majority of a year. Last year I went to, I think it was 12 countries or so. So I move around quite a bit. And the reason I came here as an American, it wasn't tax benefits, unfortunately, I wish. But the amount of clients, friends, and acquaintances I have here is just overwhelming. And I say overwhelming in a positive and negative. The negative has been like, I've been trying to find time to work. So there's so many people to meet.
Yeah.
The positive is like, I've met so many people. And then, I meet you, I meet your friends.
Yeah.
I meet your friend and I meet his friends. And like, I've met maybe 15, 20 people in the 2.5, 3 weeks I've been here. So
wow, it's crazy.
Yeah, but main positive I'd say in Dubai is just the network.
Yeah.
Now it can also be something that's overwhelming too, I think. Maybe next time I come for 2 months. But yeah, the networking has been insane. Even before we were here, there's a friend of mine named Boyan. I've known him for 5 years online.
Mm-hmm.
And put a face to the name, shake hands, hang out. It's just a very cool
You never saw
experience.
him before?
No,
Okay.
He's one of the guys I've known the longest, but I haven't met. Normally I meet people.
Yeah. Okay, and then you met him here. The crazy thing is I met a lot of people in the program I was in from Iman, and so many online people who work online are now like in Dubai, based in Dubai. Most of them are here for tax reasons, but as well of the networking. Compared to other cities you have been, what is like the biggest difference between Dubai and somewhere else?
So from a people perspective, it's the density of people in agency, info, e-commerce, and SaaS, right? It's the entrepreneur between 18 to early 30s, late 20s that lives in the same online business circle. Maybe they have a personal brand. It's that density of entrepreneurs where like I spent time in Miami, I've lived in London. You do have those people there, but it's more balanced. We're here, there's just a dominating amount of young people getting into business. And one of the things that's interesting about Dubai, I think from a motivation perspective, is like take Palm Beach. I spent a lot of time in Palm Beach.
Okay.
Palm Beach has significantly wealthier people on average in Dubai. But the gap between where I am and hundreds of millions or $1 billion is such a big gap that like I actually don't want that. So there isn't like a feeling of like, oh, I should be there. Where when I'm meeting people here, a lot of them are 1, 2, 3 steps in front of me where it's tangible. The gap between where I'm at and $5 million a year, $10 million, whatever it is, that gap is actually tangible. So I think it's the fact that people are close to my age and the gap between me and them is so tangible that increases motivation where like in London, like I'm probably never going to have like a penthouse in London. I don't even want to get to that point,
Yeah. But actually, it's a funny thing. I also met people here that are, let's say, 21, 22 years old, and they make like millions a year. Like, I know this dude. He's in the software space, and with his software agency, not an agency, but with his software company, he does like 20 million a year. And I was like, dude, you're just 22 years old. Like, how is that even possible? But so you think the biggest difference between US and here is the gap?
Well, it's going to depend. Like Palm Beach is like old money where like this is very comparative to Miami. I still think the density is higher here because you have from every country where the US is mainly just Americans.
Yeah.
But Miami feels very much like Dubai, which is interesting. You think of Miami as like a city full of sin, and then you think of Dubai as like Islamic country. But it's amazing how similar they are,
Uh-huh.
especially when you're on like the marina and the boardwalk. It feels like Miami, and it's just kind of bizarre when you look like geographically the differences.
Yeah.
But it depends. You know, more like Miami. I haven't spent time in Los Angeles, but I know there's a lot of young entrepreneurs there. So U.S. is so big that it varies. But yeah, it does feel like Miami here.
Okay, I've never been to Miami, but what do you think of like the safety levels compared Miami to Dubai? I know the answer already, but
From a freedom of speech perspective, probably Miami.
Miami, yeah.
But from like will you get pickpocketed or potentially carjacked, Miami is definitely more dangerous than here.
Yeah. Okay. So welcome to Dubai. I know that you are in the email space for a while. Can you tell us a bit about your business, how you run your business, maybe about your offer, how you help clients, for example. So let's start, in the beginning.
Yeah. So to wind back a little bit, I started my first agency kind of accidentally in actually very late 2014, but I just say 2015.
Yeah.
And I was growing Instagram theme pages. This is nothing related to what I do now. And I would sell promotions to companies. The way I got those clients was through Instagram DMs and cold email. I didn't even know cold email was a thing then. I was just sending emails to get clients. And I built that business at a very small exit. From there, I tried a lot of things, too many things at once. That's why most things didn't work.
Yeah.
I built another agency, just kept doing this, one more exit. And the whole time I was getting clients from outbound. Sometimes it was cold email, DMs, LinkedIn, just outbound messaging. And I always thought getting clients was really easy. My personal struggles are more on like operations and building teams.
Yeah.
So I realized that for a lot of people, they have a really hard time acquiring clients. So, at one point I was doing an agency I wasn't too satisfied with. And I said, hey, I'm gonna start doing cold email as a service. And I did it for some friends on commission. Worked really well. Fast forward from there, now I've been doing cold email for years as a service. We've worked with well over 100 businesses, and it started with just like marketing agencies, but now we're in B2B medical products. We're doing working with manufacturers. We're working with financial firms, like some really legitimate large companies. And in terms of how I work with them, it normally falls into two categories.
Okay.
So first category is going to be companies we're managing campaigns for. We're handling their technology, their list building, their strategy, their script writing. We're managing their inboxes. So it's very much full service. This is normally a larger company, a sales team we're doing this for, and sending them over leads.
Okay.
Then we also have what we call a 90-day setup. This is where companies want to run cold email in-house using their internal resources, people from their marketing sales teams, and we come in the 90 days, we set up their cold email system, we validate it, and train them how to run it. So those are the two core offers on the done-for-you side. And I do some coaching on the side, but that's about 10% of our revenue.
Okay. Well, actually, like the 90-day setup feels for me like it's also a coaching thing. So you teach them how to set up their funnels, their email funnels?
Yeah, so for a 90-day, it is done for you, but it's very intensive. So the first month, we are setting up their tech stack, their software stack. Same thing, sorry. We're building out their initial lists. We're building out their initial scripts. We set up our SOPs, which we built for our own team. It's over 400 pages of documentation. We train them on it. The next month, we actually manage the campaigns for them. So it's us managing the campaigns, and then we have them on calls and mimic us. So like we'll write a script and have them write a script at the same time and then critique it. So we're doing everything with them shadowing us to build confidence.
Yeah.
And then the third month, that's where they're taking over and we're just coming in when necessary. So the whole idea is instead of hiring an agency forever, you can pay us 90-day intensive project, train your team, and you can run it in-house. So you have more flexibility to scale up or down, and also operational costs are going to be lower because you're using in-house talent.
Okay, it sounds really interesting. So in terms of value, which one is for you like more profitable, and in which offer you would like to scale more, for example?
Yeah, definitely. So retained services definitely have lower margins because it involves more people and there's less standardization, but you have recurring revenue. Where with setups, it's a one-time project and done. We do sometimes do recurring consulting, but the goal is that you don't need us anymore, so it's not recurring, but the margins on that are significantly higher. Winding back a little bit, in 2022, we didn't do these setup offers. We only did management. And scaling a company, it wasn't something I enjoyed. We had too many hires, too many clients, too many moving pieces. And I live a relatively simple life, and it was just more than I needed, and margins were going down as we scaled, and just wasn't content. And that's kind of how we got into the setups where, in 23, we did less revenue, but way more profit, and I had way more time. So I'm very interested in continuing to scale these setups.
Yeah.
And then also we're working on some coaching things on the side because we didn't really have an offer for small businesses, and that's where that kind of came in.
Okay, and in the beginning of your agency, did you in the beginning when you have an agency, you want to acquire all clients, right? So it doesn't matter really for me, it doesn't really matter what niche. I was like, okay, I can get more clients, more revenue, more money coming in, let's go. How did you evolve from that in like getting all clients instead of picking a niche, for example?
Yeah, definitely. So with previous agencies I've run, I've been very dedicated to a niche in terms of we work with. Now, with my current agency, we're only one service. It's just cold email. No LinkedIn, no cold calling, just cold email. But for niches, we work in a few.
Okay.
The main reason for that is fulfillment for cold email doesn't vary that much in terms of like the work we actually do, from an agency to medical to manufacturing to the financial. Where for Facebook ads, for example, software versus lead gen for a realtor versus e-commerce conversion ads are massively different. So for us, the niches we focus on are just based around where we get the best results.
Yeah.
So we have just so much data in terms of what services are in demand, what niches are responding or not responding. So for us, if we're getting paid the same, we just do outreach to companies that we know we can get better results, and it's more money for them and less work for us.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds really good. And I've been scaling my agency as well too fast, to be honest. So I had the same problems you had. Not maybe problems, but for example, when I was with my agency on 50K a month, it was different than at 100K a month. I enjoyed it more at 50K instead of the 100K because of all the headaches. How did you find yourself in a position with your agency? So what was like the sweet spot for you?
So for agency, our sweet spot tends to be around 40 to 60. We have some clients in recurring. They're customers. We get great results. They have unique offers or products. These are people I want to work with.
Yeah.
I take some on when I want to, and when I don't. And then for these setup projects, we're able to sell, anywhere between 2 to 4 a month. They're relatively high ticket, high margin, and I enjoy it. So that's kind of where we're chilling right now.
Okay.
And I'm quite happy here, but we are looking to start scaling the setups more and more as we've kind of made more standardized resources to remove some time from fulfillment.
Okay, nice. And you told me that in the beginning when you had a lot of hires in your team, how was that like managing a big team compared to a smaller team?
So cold email requires more hires by a number game than other services because of list building.
Yeah.
List building takes a lot of people. So we had a team of like 20 people, but I like to clarify that these are mainly towards list building.
Okay.
Over half of that is list building, which is a relatively lower salaried position. So it's not like we had like 20 full-time Americans working for us.
Okay.
But I think my leadership skills are good to an extent, but I just didn't like the constant hiring and training. And when we were at 20, even like we had other people hiring and like I didn't know who they were, and it didn't feel like it just wasn't for me. Our margins were going down, we were growing, and like this was a lifestyle business for me. I have a pretty defined idea of what I want in life, and this was beyond what I needed to have what I wanted. And margins were going down, and I decided like, hey, it's an agency. I'm probably not going to sell it because the multiples aren't great, and also agencies are hard to sell.
Yeah.
And also, I know from working with really big agencies that the margins tend to go down and down and down. So if I just keep it like this, I'm not serving myself and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just doing a thing to do a thing. So that's where kind of a realization hit that like I can have what I want, but it requires going back a step to figure things out.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And if we take a look at your sales process, are you doing the closing calls yourself?
Yeah.
Still doing it yourself?
That's the only thing we have never hired for.
Okay.
We have hired for everything except the actual closing role. And the reason behind that is just good closers are very expensive.
Yeah.
And that would impact margins and require having more clients to cover that gap. And it's just never something we did. If we were going to grow more from our peak, our next step was hiring a closer. Because at one point, I was on such an obnoxious amount of sales calls that I just did nothing but sales.
Yeah, that was the next thing I wanted to talk about. I saw a few of your YouTube videos because I was following you, and you can book easily like 100 calls if you want. So I was thinking like, wow, he has this really big team, and he's doing the closing calls himself. So how do you manage that?
Well, that was one of the problems. It was all I could manage. So I have a partner that does operations. His name's Felipe. He's a genius. But beyond that, I still have some operations to do. And I was just on calls constantly, factoring call prep, marketing, taking the calls, CRM management. It was just all I did. I mean, we were consistently booking 100 calls a month for a while. And I was just on calls nonstop. Now, being that I live in Asia normally, that meant that I was on the phone from 7 p.m. till 2 p.m., Monday to Thursday, and part of Friday. And it, again, with a lifestyle business, at some point I realized, hey, my enjoyment, my satisfaction, my lifestyle, I'm not serving myself here. And this doesn't make sense. I either need to hire sales, and that's when I evaluated that I don't want to grow more in that business, or I need to downscale. And the decision ultimately came to, let's downscale.
Yeah. I had pretty much the same thing. In the beginning of my agency, I was doing all the closing calls myself. And when I still had coaching in the program, I asked like, hey, the only thing I'm doing right now is just closing calls. I'm not even talking to my team, to whatsoever. I'm just back to back into calls, you know. And the funny thing was, in that call, like, people unmuted their mic and they were like, yeah, I'm doing the same. I'm doing the same. So is that one of the reasons as well that you scaled down as well because of all the calls? Or
yeah, that was definitely one. Like, I don't like staying up very late, and being in Asia, that was very hard on me. Also, just like the not being able to do things. Like I just couldn't write an SOP or make content. I just couldn't do things. But I think that a huge jump between levels in agencies is hiring sales, because I work with so many agency owners. Between the coaching I do for Iman's program, my own coaching, my clients, it's amazing how few agencies I work with that have legitimate sales teams and operations. It's so few. So few. Like, I would say that the few agencies that I've worked with and I know that have like a sales team, multiple sales reps, not the founder involved, are generally agencies that are multi-7 or 8 figures. Yeah. It's very rare that I see an agency under $1 million a year having a closer, because a good closer needs to make 100, 150, and that's going to impact margins a lot. And also, they're on commission partly, so you need to feed them a lot of calls, which means you have to take on a lot of clients constantly. Yeah. You know, it requires a pretty big agency to maintain a good closer, because these are also ambitious people that are always looking for something better. Exactly. And you need to keep that for them, which is hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. When I was on 60K a month, I hired a closer, but he started as an appointment setter for me. So he was doing the match calls. If the client was a match, he will set it to my onboarding calls. And actually, the funny thing was, I was closing around 80%, 75, 80%. And when he was doing the closing calls, it was a really good closer, but it dropped like from 80 till 40 till 30%. And I was like, wow, I'm missing all this money, because and you need to pay the closer, right? So you're missing out the deals on the calls because you're not closing yourself anymore. And the closer, you need to pay the closer, and he's making less closes. So, but on the other side, it generated a lot of time for me, not doing all the calls anymore. So I think, yeah, you need to choose one and another, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you are a sales guy, which I'm a sales guy, my partner's an operation guy, it's unrealistic that there's a closer that's going to close higher than my business, because people, they see my content, I have like some status for content. I'm very creative. I come up with ideas on the calls. My sales calls are not a script. It's, hey, here's 10 things we could try. And they're generally good ideas. I can't expect a closer to do that because I've been doing this for so long. Yeah. So, you know, one of the considerations was too, I need to compensate for more calls at a lower close rate if I hire a closer. And it just requires a lot of work. Not to say it's impossible. It's definitely possible. It's just, it requires having bigger operation. But I think for a lot of people, isn't necessary to have what they want in life.
Yeah, for sure. Totally understand that. And compared to email marketing, I do some email marketing in my agency, but it's mostly for ourselves. So inbound leads that don't pick up the phone or don't show up for the match calls, for example, they go in an email funnel. I'm not well known as a email marketing agency. What are like the difference between email marketing and a lead gen agency during closing calls, for example?
Yeah, so I just do cold email. So everything I do is, cold. I don't manage email lists. So for us, it's very much a sales conversation and closing. Like we are trying to figure out who we're targeting, what their offer is. And we've been doing this for so long. The main thing we're trying to figure out is, do we have a client with similar targeting and services? And do we know how this is going to work? Because we're at the point now where like, we really do not want to work with you if you can't get your results. We have no interest in onboarding you, spending a lot of effort month 1 and month 2 to have you leave month 3. Yeah. So our sales process at this point, just because we've been doing this for so long, is basically just, let's compare you to someone we're working with. Let's talk about ideas and move forward past then. So I don't know if that's necessarily difference in how sales go depending on service type, but more of just when you work for so many people, you're no longer like selling, you're just comparing data and clients and case studies.
Yeah. And you have a one call close, or how is your funnel looking, for example?
Sure. So for smaller companies, it may be 1 or 2 calls. We've worked with a lot of big companies, and the sales processes are long. Okay. So our longest sales process was like 14 months.
What? 14 months?
Fortune 50 company.
Whoa.
So it's Fortune 15 company.
Yeah.
Multiple 5-figure deal, pay in full, 14 months. Now, our average, if we're considering larger companies we work with, multiple 7 or 8 or multiple 8 figures. Yeah. Normally not 9. 90 to 120 days, maybe 4-5 hours on the phone sometimes. Lots of approvals, lots of people to meet, talk to multiple layers. But again, we're selling to bigger companies a higher ticket. When I sell to an agency that's at $500K a year, it's normally a call, a proposal, maybe a 15-minute question call, then it's closed. Yeah. But we're selling to, multiple layered organizations typically.
Okay. And if we look at like the smaller companies, for example, because I think the majority of people will look at this podcast, will close like companies around between 250K and $1 million a year, for example. What are like the biggest objections in your closing calls for your deal, for your offer?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this a little bit differently because I think it's a different answer people will expect to hear. Okay. So the main thing I think people are looking at is competence.
Yeah.
Can you get me the results, and are you competent? Now, how do I convey that? Now, on a sales call, because I'm more established, you can't just start this. It's like case studies, reviews, data, and ideas. We've done this, it'll work for you. We worked with this company, it'll work for you. Now, one thing that drastically increased my close rate, this is probably the biggest singular increase in my close rate beyond just practice and time and case studies, was we send what I think are some of the best proposals you've ever seen after a call. Because most people after a call, their process is, and we learned it from selling to big companies, we apply it to smaller companies, and just have never seen this. So most people will send an email with a few bullet points. Yeah. This is what we're going to do. Or here's the Loom video, here's some bullet points. We have proposal pages. It'll be like our website, dfymeetings.com/their company name. Okay. It has a full walkthrough video, normally 5 to 15 minutes. We list out every deliverable in detail. We list out all of our case studies, all of our testimonial videos. We list out examples of scripts, campaigns. We have a Q&A section. We have an operational cost section. It is a massive proposal with a bunch of drop-down sections. It's huge. It has my YouTube posts, my Instagram posts, my Twitter posts. It has all of our content, all of our reviews, all of our case studies, all of our tutorial videos, all the details for pricing. And the idea behind this was we started doing it for big companies because you sell to the head of sales, and head of sales needs to get approval from the CEO. Yeah. And the idea was you could just send them this page that looks really good. And because if somebody's just like selling, we sell to one guy, he tells the other guy, he's not going to sell like you do. That's your business. So these pages helped. But our close rate of fees just like shot up. So we started doing these for every business that we sell to, assuming it's a large enough deal. We're not going to do this for like a $1,000 consulting deal, but for like a normal deal. Yeah. And these, everyone compliments them, and they just make people trust us. It just shows so much competence and expertise.
So even if you do a 2-call close, for example, you're not closing on the second call, right? Or
so I do a call and then I send these proposals to people.
Okay.
And then from the proposals, if we do another call, it's normally for any follow-up questions. This proposal just answers everything we would normally cover in another call. And maybe we can put one up on a screen here, like scroll through it to give a visual.
Okay.
But these have crushed it for us.
That's crazy.
I'll show
man.
you after too.
It's really different than what I'm doing. For me, it's like maybe the normal structure, like you got an opt-in, appointment setter calls them, get them in a match call, see if the lead is qualified. We have a closing call, and on the closing call, they sign a deal. If they don't sign a deal, they don't. For example, our catch, our frame is like, hey, you get 1 month free, but we have startup fee. You get 1 month free, and if they don't, sign on that call, they don't get them 1 month free. So sometimes we really have clients that sign our deal and don't get the 1 month free. But I'm in a different niche, right? I'm in home service, so not really, really big companies. They are more like mechanics, so a different state of mind. But actually, it's really, nice to hear how you do that. And how did you figure that out? Like, you tried many things, I guess, in all those years?
Well, the common thing that would happen is we sell to one person in a large organization, and they tell their boss, and their boss is not convinced, because it's reasonable, right? If I tell you my offer, then you have to turn around and sell your boss. Like, you're not me, right?
Yeah.
So what would
cannot do
happen is the boss would finally get on a call with us, and we would explain it. And he goes, "Oh, that makes sense. Why didn't you tell me this?" And we just realized it's not reasonable to expect, a low to mid-level team member to like relay the same message. So the idea was, how can we have more control of this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we created these super in-depth proposals, and people just kept complimenting on them and also asking, how do we do them? And that's been like one of our, I guess, tricks or tactics in our sales process, which, it does take time. Takes like 15, 20 minutes to make one of these, but they just crush it.
You do it for every client. So for example, you got the 100 calls in a month, or maybe 50 calls. And for the ones that you want to work with, you make it like for every one of them?
So we have 3 paths.
Okay.
So if it's a small, like, for example, I do like some hourly consulting at $500 an hour. I just have a calendar link you can book on. Like, I'm not going to send a proposal for that. I just send you the calendar link. Or like, if it's like a tiny deal, I don't do this.
Yeah.
Now, if I have a sales call with someone and I don't think they're really serious, I think that maybe, sometimes people will just say yes because they want to get off the phone.
Yeah.
If I don't think you're really serious, I have a standardized one I send people.
Okay.
So it's the same for everybody.
Yeah.
And then if you're very serious, you have high intent, that's where I make the custom ones.
So you're not afraid that you're like losing the client because of that. For example, if I always think when a client says like, hey, I need to think about it, I need to discuss it with my boss, blah, 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 blah. For me, it feels like that they don't want the deal. They just want to get rid of you. How do you think about that?
Well, I still send them the standardized proposal because I'm not putting time and attention to it.
Okay.
Because it doesn't hurt me too. And also, we have never struggled getting sales calls. So I just have very little interest in pushing people to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, fantastic. If you don't, that's totally okay.
Fine. Well, how is that possible? You're from USA. All the US salespeople are like really pushy. Hey, if you don't reply before tomorrow 10 a.m., then I consider that you don't want the deal and I give your spot to someone else.
I've always hated that. When people do that to me on phone calls, I hang up on them.
Mm-hmm.
I have never bought anything ever from a pushy salesperson. Also, I don't buy anything over $1,000 without waiting 48 hours.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. But what is like the difference you think between a client who's on a call and who says, all right, I want to really work with you guys, and on the other side you have the client that really skeptical, wants to think about it, wants to discuss it with, for example, his wife, his team? What is the difference between both, you think, in a closing call?
So 2 answers. For bigger companies, it's normally just
It's
permission.
normal.
It's permission. Because when somebody who's an employee is going to hire me, the main goal for them, beyond revenue or leads, is job security.
Yeah.
So that's that answer. My second answer is for smaller companies, that why would they not want to sign with us? Normally it's a bad experience in the past. maybe they're not even sold on their own offer. Normally I think normally it comes down to like a logical thing. Like our sales process is pretty good. We have a lot of results. So, maybe they've had a bad experience, or maybe they're cash strapped, or, maybe they're not confident in their own offer. And if any of those things are true, like they're not confident in their own offer, I don't really want to work with them either. I think it's better if they figure it out on their own unless they have money to burn and want to test. Or like if they've been burned by a lot of agencies, I get it. So I just kind of leave it like an empathetic approach.
Yeah.
Or if they're cash strapped, I don't want your last dollar. I really don't. So I've just always had a very calm and collected sales process with pretty much no sales tactics. And that approach has worked well for me.
Okay. And for example, when we assign a new client, we have this checklist. The client must have this, must have that. Do you have that as well?
Like an onboarding?
Yeah, like in the onboarding, you qualify the client to see if it's a fit for your company. You have that as well, or?
Yeah,
not?
so when someone books a call, we have like some qualifying questions we use. And, we do cancel certain calls.
Yeah, and in the closing calls, you sometimes say to a client like, hey, I don't feel we are a match, don't want to work with you. When is that? So when will you decide that?
Normally on the first call.
Yeah.
I have never had that go wrong. I've never had someone be upset that I say, I can't help you. What normally ends up happening is I tell them what I would recommend, and very often they'll come back to me 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later. Normally people appreciate that because they don't get told that very often.
Yeah, that's true, because other agencies really want the clients coming in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's really cool, actually. I want to talk a bit about your coaching life, because you have been a coach for a while. What advice will you give to new students that join a course or coaching? What advice do you want to give them?
Sure. So someone who's joining their first program.
Yeah.
Okay. So I haven't had my own coaching for a long time, but I've done coaching for other programs. I started with a guy named Kai Bax, and I did coaching for Iman Gadzhi, a name many people listening probably know.
Yeah.
And I also joined a lot of courses when I first started out. I think the main thing that people don't do is just meet everybody.
Yeah.
The guy I mentioned, Boyan, I've known online for 5 years. I met him in a course. I met you in a course.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a paywall. Paywalls are a good thing to find people. If I go to a free Facebook group, there's obviously going to be great people on there, but it's free. If I am in a course that costs $1,000, there's a $1,000 paywall. People have $1,000, which is a slightly higher quality generally, and also they're willing to invest in themselves. So, for example, let's take Iman's program. It's a huge amount of people. Even if you don't watch any of the content or come to any of the coaching, and you just talk to a lot of people, you're going to sell some, you're going to get referrals from some, you're going to learn some, you might find your best friend. A lot of my best friends are from courses. So main thing I would say is just being really proactive in meeting people, because I see it very often where they join and they watch some content and then they just kind of isolate themselves. Like just talk to everybody. I've always done this. Like one of the most expensive masterminds I joined, the first day, I sent a personalized message to 120 people in it. That's why I made a bunch of friends.
Yeah, that's nice. I think that's also really important in a course, that they have a good community. What I feel sometimes it's strange in a course that you have the coaching calls, and for example, there are 400 people in the community, but only 20 people are joining the coaching calls. And for me, I was on every coaching calls almost. Not at the email one, because I don't run email, but on the sales calls, mindset calls, I was there every day. What do you think of people that buy a course and don't join the calls, for example?
I'm going to take a quote from my dad here. So growing up, I was always the one who would do all the things.
Yeah.
And I'd be upset that other people wouldn't. And he would always tell me, if everybody was special, you wouldn't be. So that's the answer, right? I know the completion rates just from doing coaching programs. 25% of people will never watch a video.
Yeah, true.
So already the people who buy the program are already higher threshold of person. And then within that threshold, 25% won't watch anything. Another 25% will never attend a call. Another 25% will attend one call. And then you have a 25%, it's just, if everybody was special, you wouldn't be. You're special. You're doing well. The fail rate on an agency is, I don't actually know what number it is. It's probably less than 1%, but actually, once they even make $10,000, fraction of 1% probably look at everybody. So the simple answer is, you're special. You put in the effort. That's why you're reaping rewards. Other people did not. They are not reaping the rewards.
Yeah, that's why we are entrepreneurs, I guess, as well, right? And you said like the 10K mark in an agency. For a lot of people buying a course, they feel like, oh, I want to make 10K. Let's join this course. What does it need, you think, as an agency owner to scale from 10K to 30K, from 30 to 50 plus, for example, a month?
Answering this in a little bit more of like a philosophical way, I guess. I think it's very important to know what you want. Because a lot of people I meet, they say, yeah, I want to scale an agency because I want to travel the world. Now, to travel the world, assuming you want to travel in Asia, which a lot of people do, your cost of living and everything is maybe like $1,000, $2,000 a month. So like what you really maybe want is 4 clients as a freelancer paying you 2K, where you can save a bunch of money and do everything you want. So I think it's important to know what you want too, because for a lot of people, I don't think they want a skilled agency. I mean, if your goal is to save money and live a good life and not have that much stress, an agency is probably not the best option. You're probably better off learning a skill and freelancing and having 4 or 5 clients in a VA. Yeah. Because you could have amazing margins. You could make, let's say, 10, 12K. You could save 5, 6 a month, which is awesome. And you could do everything you want. So I think the main thing for going is like knowing what you're aiming towards, because having that is very important. And a lot of people I talk to, it's like, man, it doesn't sound like you should have an agency. It sounds like you should just freelance. So that's kind of a more philosophical answer. But in terms of like 0 to 10K, I think it's just time and repetition. You're figuring out what works for outreach and for service. Let's say 10 to 30 is going to come down to systemization and hiring. I mean, 30 to 100, you know, it's going to be leadership. How many layers between you and clients are there? If I was simplifying it, that's what I would say. Yeah.
For me, the agency, when it was on 30K, I had like, that was the best time of my life, because you didn't have the stress of the employees, for example, in your team. You didn't have the stress of too much clients. It was just really managing the clients you had, and just you had some time to chill, right? So I think on the 30K mark a month, I could have chilled I just worked 2 hours and chill like the whole day. Is it the same in an email agency? Because I have a lead gen agency. Is it the same or not?
It depends on team, I think, right? If you have rock star air players, maybe. I definitely was more involved because I just, we just had so many sales calls that just forced growth. But like right now, I work 30 to 50 hours a week, depending on the week. I make what I consider a good amount of money. I have a relatively good amount of free time. So like, I'm kind of at a mark where I'm where I want to be. Nice. Obviously I have interest in maintaining that lifestyle, but increasing income, but that's going to require different ways. So yeah, I think it really comes down to knowing what you want, which I don't think enough people give thought to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. I get a lot of DMs from people that ask me like, hey, I'm running an agency. What niche are you in? Or what is a really good offer? The offer thing is really important, I think. If we look at a good offer, what does it need to contain, you think?
Yeah, so I have an interesting answer to this, and this is just based on data of doing outreach. Now, I'm going to answer this in a couple ways. So the hardest niches, so when I look at offer, I kind of consider like a niche and service pairing. That's kind of like when you have what it is that you do at your offer, right? The hardest niches and services are the ones that have the most supporting resources. So if I go on YouTube and I look up how to do lead gen for realtors, there are so many podcasts, blogs, courses, YouTube videos on how to do it. Why? It was a great niche. There's a lot of realtors. There's a lot of money in it. But the level of competition there is insane. You could look up how to do SMA for realtors, and it'll be YouTube videos, 1 million views, hundreds of thousands of views. It is so competitive from sheer volume. Now, on one hand, you say, well, how else do I know what to do? Because there's all this documentation. It's easy to follow. But 10,000 other people thought that. Yeah. And 10,000 other beginners also burned realtors, and now there's a bad reputation. Not saying real estate's bad. It's actually a great niche, but it's competitive. Now, on the other hand, let's take a client of mine. I have clients that sell expensive medical equipment. Yeah. I don't know. I've never seen a YouTube video saying how to sell to multiple 8-figure organizations that sell B2B medical equipment. Now, also, if I'm a beginner, So it's way easier to do outreach and be unique and be competitive, but also it's like there is no supporting documentation. You need to figure this out yourself.
Yeah.
So the answer between that is it's hard, right? So my recommendation starting out is watch videos on a niche and a service, but try to do something slightly different, just slightly different. Because when you're doing the same thing everybody else is doing, it's just so hard. Where a lot of our clients to get the best results and our own campaigns are just going to be targeting just industries you just don't think about. We've had some really wacky, random industries we've worked in.
Mm-hmm. And to start with, like as a beginner, what do you think is a good niche? It's a hard question, I know that, but what do you think?
So, couple considerations here. One that's even before niche is the language. If I see this very often, where someone's based, let's say in Europe, let's say that you're in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
If you start an agency in Dutch, your outreach is going to be so much easier than English, so much easier. We've had a campaign in French do 15 times better than the same campaign in English.
Oh yeah.
Because you think about it, everyone in Asia, Central America, South America, Europe, everyone wants to work with English speakers, primarily in the US. So there's just so much competition. So if you're just starting out, first thing I consider before is like, am I French and can I target in French? Yes, I will charge less, but it will cost less to acquire a customer. Mm-hmm. Or am I Dutch? Can I target in Dutch or whatever that may be? So that's the first consideration. Now, if you are going to be working in English, the next consideration I would say is, what do you have experience or can you relate to? Did your dad own a restaurant? You have a connection to restaurants. Were you a landscaper in high school? Well, now you know landscaping. So I would look at an industry you already understand, whether that's via a family member, yourself, or even a passion. Like, I'm passionate about cameras, I will work with photographers. Mm-hmm. That connection point, whether it just be experience or emotional, is going to give you something to make people book a call with you, even when you don't have the case studies. And also on your sales call, you have something to talk about. You can communicate on the same level. So I would look at what's close to you, what are you interested in, what do you have experience with, and I would leverage that, because that's going to make it so much easier when you don't have the social proof.
Yeah, but for example, you in your business, you have multiple niches where you work in. Which one extend, like, by far? Which one you really like?
I really like selling to agencies.
Okay.
Now, they're not always the easiest to get results for, but agencies, like, they're very receptive to email. They're generally nice. They have relatively high margins. They generally have money. They're really easy to filter because the company size is like a direct correlation of revenue generally. Yeah. So I like selling to agencies. I actually don't think it's that competitive. Mm-hmm. So I do enjoy selling to agencies. Okay,
nice. So the time is running out, but really curious. You and your partner, you live in? Thailand?
So I'm from South Florida.
Yeah.
I've been to around 40 countries traveling. I started traveling when I was 18, I'm 24 now. Uh-huh. And what I consider home base is I have a condo in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is northern Thailand. And I spend a decent chunk of a year there, anywhere between 3 to 6 months.
Okay, and why you decided to live there? And because you have been to all these places. And I know a couple of people who are also living in Thailand. Why Thailand?
From a more boring perspective, visa-wise, it's easy to spend a lot of time there.
Okay.
Internet is very fast. Also, a couple other things are like safety. Mm-hmm. Safety. I like that I could own my condo there. That was important to me. Yeah. So from like a logistical perspective, those things. From more of a fun perspective, I guess you could say, there's a lot to do. There's the mountains, there's the beach, there's big cities, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, there's beautiful nature. It's low cost. Like, I generally spend less than $1,000 a month there, and mm-hmm. I do everything I want to do. So
How much did you say?
1,000.
Wow, that's so different compared to Dubai.
Yeah. So it's also great for saving money, because like I can just save a absurd amount of money every year.
That's crazy.
Also, the proximity to other countries. You're a couple hours from Malaysia. You're a couple hours from Cambodia, Laos. It's just very central to places I like to go to. Quality of life is really high. People are really happy. It's really clean.
Food is good, I guess.
Food is very good and very inexpensive.
Yeah, nice. Okay, last question for you. What do you want to say to young entrepreneurs that just starting their journey to become an agency owner or starting sales company, for example, what would you want to say to them?
Yeah, going back to my dad's quote, if everybody was special, you wouldn't be. If you want to be special, whether it's in sports or music or anything else, it's just repetition and time. You know, I do some interviews on my own YouTube channel. My favorite question is, what'd you do to get your first client? Almost every answer involves something that was really uncomfortable, really time consuming, and took a ton of repetition. It's most people are just never going to do the hard stuff. They're looking for the AI solution to not work, for looking to hire a contractor. Do the reps, time, right? Like that's the boring answer everybody gives, but it's true. It's like you need to do the stuff that sucks. You need to do a lot of it, and you need to do it for a long time. And life gets easier and easier and easier the more that you do. And I'm so glad that I did that when I was young. I'm so glad I did it when I was 15 and 16. Because I have a financial base where I can stop working and be fine for, depending where I'm living, 10, 20, 30 years, which is great for options. I have all these case studies, network experience. You know,
those people you met.
It's a great spot to be in at my age. And I wouldn't be in this spot if I didn't start when I was young. I mean, when I was 15, 16, I was physically handing out flyers, door knocking at businesses. If I didn't do the crap, I would not be where I was. So yeah, do the hard stuff and do a lot of it.
All right. I want to thank you very much for your time and being here with me in my podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great.
All right, man. See you next time.
Absolutely.